Good evening and welcome to the Common Sense Show. Tonight, we're talking about Spirit Airlines. Now, Spirit Airlines has filed or is filing, to be more accurate, for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. And within the next few days and weeks, we're going to see a lot more about the Spirit Airlines bankruptcy come out. And interested to hear the details about how Spirit Airlines is going to restructure themselves. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to take a look at how Spirit Airlines is restructuring themselves, what their plans are, what led up to their bankruptcy, and of course, in memoriam of Spirit Airlines, we have to take a look at what Spirit Airlines is actually known for, which is the fights, of course. So sit back, relax, and tonight we're going to have a little fun as we take a look at Spirit Airlines and their business, the business model, what's going on, and of course, the Spirit Airlines fights. I mean, you cannot talk Spirit Airlines without talking about Spirit Airlines, the fights. So let's roll. 30-second intro, and we're back at it. All right, so let's get right into it. Let's take a look at the Spirit Airline bankruptcy, the latest news about Spirit Airlines and their exploration of bankruptcy. And let's just kind of go through what we know today about it. So Spirit Airlines is in discussion with their bondholders over the terms of a potential bankruptcy filing in the wake of its failed merger with JetBlue Airways. If you remember, JetBlue and Spirit Airlines, I think a little bit, I think it was either early this year or late last year, Spirit Airlines was attempting to merge with JetBlue Airlines, and I think the DOJ they squashed that so they couldn't merge. But let's talk about what happened with Spirit Airlines. So Spirit Airlines has been struggling with losses and declining revenues as it aims to address the coming maturities within its $3.3 billion with a B debt load, including more than $1.1 billion of secured bonds that are due in less than a year. If you're not familiar with kind of how this works, then I'll just explain it to you. When a company wants to raise capital, or in some cases offset, some losses, they can sell corporate bonds. Corporate bonds are tools that investors can pick up on, and a corporation can essentially offer just like a regular bond, a maturity date where they pay back what they bonded out with interest. And then, of course, the investors get their money back plus interest. Spirit Airlines' bond is coming due to the tune of $1.1 billion. So that's kind of what's going on with the issued bonds. Spirit also faces a deadline from its credit card processor to refinance or extend these notes by October 21st. But as you see here, it is, of course, this article was written October 3rd. So I'm not sure if they've done it yet. I have to kind of look at the updates about that. It says that the airline hasn't turned an annual profit since before COVID-19 pandemic. Even as travel has rebounded from the downturn, Spirit and other budget carriers have been battered as big airlines have gotten better at carving up their cabins and deploying bare bones fares that can win over bargain hunters. So they haven't turned a profit in 5 years. So before the COVID pandemic would be 2019. That's the last time they turned a profit. That is wild. That is so wild that they haven't turned a profit in that long. Obviously, their continued annualized losses have resulted resulted in them issuing bonds. And then, of course, now their bonds are maturing and due, and um, you know, we'll see if they actually paid those. It says Spirit's operational footprint is shrinking. The airline recently cut dozens of routes for November and December. Spirit now plans to contract its capacity by nearly 20% in the fourth quarter from the same period last year. Aviation industry analyst from Deutsche Bank wrote this week. That is wild. That is a lot. Contracting its capacity 20% is massive. So this, in my opinion, means that what we're going to see is we're going to see some massive layoffs from Spirit Airlines if they haven't already. Let's just take a look and see how many people have gotten laid off. Let's see. Okay, right here. So this is saying that. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Can I? Oh yeah, there we go. Cool. Okay. Spirit Airlines has cut cost by $80 billion. And it's also selling 23 older Airbus planes for $519 million to raise money that it needs. It says the sale proceeds are estimated to provide $225 million of liquidity next year. Let's see here. They must be cutting. I can't imagine them not cutting their. Here it is. Okay. So Spirit will furlough about 330 pilots on January 31st, 2025. And it says Spirit furloughed 186 pilots last month. It will also downgrade 120 captains to first officers on January 31st. So obviously we know that companies of all sizes face trade-offs when they need to raise capital for financing, debt capital for financing, or try to restructure themselves to try to rein in some of the costs that are drowning the company. And so in this case, they've already kind of start furloughing their pilots, tons of their pilots, or downgrading them to first officers. I think this ultimately means that their pilots are going to end up going to other places, to other companies. Often that's what happens when people lose their jobs, right? They just go and pursue the same job at another company. They furloughed 186 pilots, downgraded. Do you think that a captain of a plane is going to want to be demoted from captain to first officer and just kind of stick around with a company that seems like their financial footing is kind of unstable at the moment? If I was an airline captain, I certainly wouldn't want that kind of future for myself. I wouldn't even try to have that kind of future for myself. I would definitely pursue getting a captainship with a more stable airline. Yeah, so here it is right here. I just previously mentioned that about the merger between JetBlue and Spirit Airlines being struck down by the DOJ, but it was a federal judge who sided with the Justice Department's argument that the combination of JetBlue and Spirit Airlines would have reduced competition and harm travelers who rely on Spirit's low fares. We're going to talk about the customers who rely on Spirit's low fares, because Spirit's low fares and people who fly on Spirit's low fares have been, shall we say, meme worthy in the last, I don't know, decade. I've never personally flown on Spirit Airlines. Have you? If you're watching this right now, okay, have you flown on Spirit Airlines before? If you have, put a yes in the chat and let me know what your flight was like to Spirit Airlines, because I want to know what it's like to fly in Spirit Airlines. Tonight, remember, in memoriam, going over Spirit Airlines bankruptcy, we're going to take a look at some, shall we say, moments between customers, staff on Spirit Airlines. We're going to take a look at some fights, some Spirit Airline fights tonight. We're not reveling in Spirit Airlines' demise, but what we're doing is we're really taking stock of what it was like with Spirit Airlines around. So So that's the deal. So at the moment, Spirit Airlines, this article came out in October. Spirit Airlines is trying to restructure. They're trying to get their debt down, selling airplanes, furloughing pilots. The next step after pilots is probably going to be, flight attendant staff, things like that. They always come after the people who make the most money first. So that's probably what's going to happen here. The question is, are the pilots going to stick around? That's going to be actually pretty interesting. So to get our kind of in memoriam of Spirit Airlines, the company, underway, we're going to take a look at some interesting things. Now, I am not normally a Trevor Noah fan at all. I think he's, for no other reason than I think he's kind of corny, but I thought that this Spirit Airlines roast was pretty good. So let's take a look. And don't forget, before we watch this, if you have flown on Spirit Airlines, I want to hear your story. I want to know what it was like to fly in Spirit Airlines. Is it exactly what we all think it's going to be? Because let me just talk to you for a minute. You know what we think that flying on Spirit Airlines is like. We believe that flying on Spirit Airlines is like a combination of the Dukes of Hazzard and shopping at some weird WrestleMania meat market combined with a plane that only goes in reverse. People have these ideas of what it's like to actually fly on Spirit Airlines, and I've never flown on Spirit Airlines, but my thought is that flying on Spirit Airlines is kind of like, flying on hoopty airs. You remember the plane from Soul Plane? Snoop Dogg airplane, Soul Plane, that had the hydraulics, and it was bouncing. That's what everyone thinks that Spirit Airlines is. They think it's some kind of just ghetto airline. But again, I've never flown Spirit. It'll be interesting. But they have a reputation. Let's take a look at Trevor Noah's Spirit Airlines roast.
The security line at TSA, but one toddler found an interesting way around it.
Now to a toddler's wild ride at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport.
This 2-year-old climbs onto the baggage belt and disappears in an instant. The toddler caught up with all the other bags where he enters and passes through an X-ray machine.
Okay. And we're just starting here. The toddler went through an X-ray machine. The toddler went through an X-ray machine at an airport. X-ray, radiation, right? Is it radiation? I mean, I don't know how these things work, but I assume, like everyone else, that there's radiation that comes out of those X-ray machines. But a toddler went through an X-ray machine in the Spirit Airlines terminal. This just kind of underscores what we're talking about when it comes to Spirit Airlines, right? How can you trust them? Again, if you're watching this and you've flown Spirit Airlines, just let me know in the chat. I want to know what your experience was like. Let me know.
Horrifying travels then send him into a massive bag room where workers quickly discover him riding down the belt and rush to his rescue. Spirit Airlines says the boy passed by a section of our ticket counter that was not staffed or open at the time.
By the way, raise your hand if you were not surprised at all when they said it was Spirit Airlines. Yeah.
Everybody in the crowd.
It was Spirit Airlines. I bet this wasn't even an accident. I bet the kid just found out that his parents were flying Spirit, and he was like, oh, hell no. It's like, I'll take my chances with the luggage. Spirit Airlines, the cargo hold is our first class. They're congresswomen. So Trump telling them to stay out of the government's business doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's like telling Spirit Airlines not to serve you peanuts that fell on the floor of other airlines. That's what they do. Spirit Airlines, if you wanted to eat clean peanuts, you should have flown Delta. So as of today, any plane that might be unsafe to fly will be grounded until it can be repainted with Spirit Airlines on the side. Spirit Airlines, how are we not grounded? So this
is actually, I told you this was actually pretty decent. And again, I'm no Trevor Noah fan typically, but I mean, it's Spirit Airlines jokes. These jokes kind of write themselves.
So it's pretty cool, but I'm not in a rush to get one. It's cool, but it looks uncomfortable, and the whole journey you're probably covered in bugs. It's like flying Spirit Airlines. Spirit Airlines, we're the hoverboard of the sky. And can you imagine like getting off the flights and seeing this? Because you forget people were landing as well. You'd probably want to get right back on your plane because this is chaos. Yeah, unless you flew on Spirit Airlines. Spirit Airlines, it's like a violent Chinese protest in the sky. Virginia's Democratic governor, Ralph Northam, admitted to being one of the people in this old yearbook photo, right? But he didn't say which person he was. And I don't blame him because neither option is good. Yeah, it's like you're taking a trip and your only choices are the Titanic and Spirit Airlines, you know? Yeah, I mean, at least on the Titanic, you might get to Leo, but I mean, honestly, I don't know what's scarier. Parachuting into Nazi territory on the real D-Day or being the jump expert today who's responsible for not hurting a 97-year-old veteran. Because if that landing goes wrong, the veteran's going to be mad. He's going to be like, I survived Hitler, but it looks like Butterfingers Barry over here finished the job. Who needs Nazis when you got numbskulls? By the way, that wasn't actually a commemorative jump. Those two guys were just flying to France on Spirit Airlines. Spirit Airlines, you know what? Just let me out here. Just because people voted for Trump.
Honestly, is Spirit Airlines that bad? If you've flown Spirit Airlines, let me know. I want to know from you is okay, if you've ever flown Spirit. So let me just tell you what I think a day in the life of someone who flies on Spirit Airlines is like. I believe that flying on Spirit Airlines is like, you get your ticket, you go to the airport, you're a little nervous because you're not sure what's going to happen because you've heard of Spirit Airlines, and you pack your brass knuckles, even though they might get confiscated because you might get in a fight at the terminal. I just assume if I'm going to Spirit Airlines that I'm all of a sudden going to get into a fight. So I probably put my family on a different airline, and to save money, maybe I take Spirit Airlines, right? Like this is kind of like the day in the life of someone who flies Spirit Airlines, right? And it maybe this is what contributed to their filing bankruptcy, their downfall, right? It became so discounted, so budget friendly that they end up driving themselves out of business. I mean, honestly, I don't know, but like flying Spirit Airlines to me always kind of seemed like a joke. It's almost like I went to go see Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, and he has this bit where he talks about McDonald's and like what people, if you eat McDonald's, how people look at you. And so one of the things he said in his bit was people look at, like, McDonald's doesn't claim to be a health club. They sell burgers and fries, right? So they say that, you know, if someone sees you eating McDonald's, they look at you like, I didn't know I was better than you. And that is what it's like, I think, flying Spirit Airlines. If people see, well, they know that you, it is the McDonald's of airline flying. Do you agree? Put a 1 in the chat for yes, 2 for no. Is Spirit Airlines the McDonald's of airline flights? I think it might be. All right, let's continue with Trevor Noah.
Trump doesn't mean they like everything he came with. It's like when you buy cable and it comes with 6 months of stars. Nobody's happy. Yeah, you're just like, fine, just tell me what channel it's on so I know how to avoid it. Stars, we're the Spirit Airlines of cable.
Pilots, flight attendants, and air traffic controllers are expressing growing concern, saying air safety is deteriorating by the day as the government shutdown drags on.
Their unions issued a joint statement saying they can't even predict the point at which the entire system will break.
Oh, hell no. They can't predict when the system, like now the shutdown is affecting air traffic control. Like if I was a pilot, I wouldn't even play around with this nonsense. I'd be like, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our cruising altitude of 50 feet. 50 feet, just gonna play it safe today, folks. But this is crazy. You realize without properly staffed air traffic control, pilots are asking how safe it is to fly. And Spirit Airline pilots are asking, what's air traffic control? Spirit Airlines, we shut down the day we opened.
All right, so that was a Trevor Noah roast of Spirit Airlines that I saw. I thought it was pretty decent. But look, you know, I want to know a couple of things. From the serious financial side, right? If you're an investor and you looked at Spirit Airlines, their balance sheet, their cash reserves, their assets, the management of the company, and you saw that they had not turned a profit. And I understand the concept of buying low, buying at a discount, what you think is a discount, because you believe that something's going to turn around. But do you really have any faith at all in the Spirit Airlines management and their ability to navigate the crisis? And do you have enough confidence in Spirit Airlines where you would buy bonds to Spirit Airlines? Like, you literally would buy bonds to actually invest in this company, thinking that they might be able to meet the maturity date. They have $1.1 billion with a B of issued corporate bonds and a maturity date at which they're not sure that they can pay those bonds back. That is wild. I don't know how they emerge from this bankruptcy, what they're going to have to do to sell. Obviously, they're selling just like someone personally who's going bankrupt. They're selling airplanes off just like, you and I would have like a yard sale, for our household if we were kind of going out of business ourselves. So I was able to put together some, shall we say, compilations in this kind of memoriam for Spirit Airlines that I thought were pretty decent. And we're going to take a look at that. Yeah, let's take a look at some of these Spirit Airline fights.
All right, now, y'all want to get on this plane or not? Yes, we do. All right, so everyone's going to shut up, and we're going to say this once, and we're only going to say it again because we're frustrated as hell. Look, I don't even know what aircraft is here because everybody's screaming numbers. I don't know what I have. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what aircraft is sitting out there. I don't know what's going on. You guys won't give me a minute. Please give me a minute. Please.
So I say, you go, girl, take your minute. They're a little fired up. That lady with the pencil finger and the squeaky voice who put everybody in their place for coming up and all asking questions at the same time. I would have a hard time like not laughing at the same time she's expressing her frustration. And I get it. She's probably irritated because it's people kind of irritating the crap out of her. All right, you ready to get to the good stuff? So this is what I imagine flying Spirit Airlines is like right here. Okay. And thankfully for TMZ, we have some footage of this. So let's check it out.
Let's go.
All right, Julie. All right, Julie. All right.
I mean, they're all wrapped up in the stanchion like ribbons.
Get up because this.
Look at this guy. Right, this is an employee right here, telling him to get up and fight. Like the employee of Spirit Airlines, right here. This is kind of what goes through my mind if I was gonna like fly Spirit Airlines. What I might run into when I get to the airport, right? Like it's okay. I'm gonna go on this trip. I'm gonna go to Spirit, buy my ticket for Spirit Airlines. And what I'm gonna find there is this, right? Like this mess. I'm gonna end up fist fighting. It's almost like in order to get on this plane, we have to have a fight to the death to get a seat. Like that's what it feels like.
Let me get him.
Look at this guy. Okay, I have another one here. I got some gold for you. Okay, so here's another one. Y'all know this guy right here? Do you know who this is right here? Can you tell? Hold on, let me make it a little bigger. I have a clue for you. Okay. This guy wears a big chain and a big clock around his neck. And he's probably like 58 right now. This guy. That's Flavor Flav. He's a little upset because they messed up his flight, apparently. He doesn't look like he's flying. He doesn't have a big clock though either. He's upset. He's upset. Flavor Flav couldn't even get on Spirit Airlines. If Flavor Flav can't get on Spirit Airlines, what makes you think that you would get a flight on Spirit Airlines? I would do like Trevor Noah and say Spirit Airlines. Not even Flavor Flav can get a seat on that airline. So that's that was an interesting scene from so here we have you fighting the ticket agent, the two ticket agents berating you for coming up. You getting wrapped up in the stanchion with some guy. I think that guy was like had just gotten out of a like the airport wheelchair, like the ones with the little narrow seat that if you kind of fart or something, then you're gonna fall out and like fall on the ground. And like he ended up fighting the Spirit Airlines employee, and then they end up both getting wrapped up in the stanchion. And then the Spirit Airlines employees is like kind of like hovering over him, like wanting to fight him. But this one, okay, the one I'm going to show you now I want you to watch. This is wild. I've never seen anything like this before in an airline terminal. As many times as I've flown, I have never seen anything like this right here. But this is apparently what you get when you fly Spirit Airlines. This is it. Check it out.
You haven't lost your mind. Don't touch me ever in your life. You touch me first, and then you got in my face. Don't ever invade my personal space. Get out of my face! No, I'm not. Stay out of my personal space. She's touching me.
Here's a guy that's continuing to charge a woman, saying she's invading my personal space. Like but he's not going anywhere. And like this is like the classic what is it? Unstoppable force and immovable object. Like that's what this is.
Touching me. And I'm telling you, don't put you can't put my hands on me.
Look at that. You see the push? This guy, hold on one second. Let's watch that again. Okay. This guy drove into the guy that was trying to hold him back, and then he tackled this woman. All right, watch it again. This is like an ESPN instant replay. He tackled this woman on the floor. I'm sorry. I know it's not funny, but it kind of is.
Boy, have you lost your mind? Because I'll help you find it.
Something about this woman had him lose his mind completely. Like who does that, right? Let me go back. Who charges like that? Watch.
Hands on me.
Look, does the roll? Oh, I just noticed that. Did you see the roll? Watch the roll. Watch the roll. Watch this. He rolled on him. Oh my goodness. Okay, I didn't see that the first time I watched this. Hold on. Let's watch this again. He literally rolled on top of this woman. Watch the roll. He body rolled.
Hey, stop it! Hey!
Oh!
Hey. Don't you ever put your hands on me! No! Get everybody back off from me! This bitch
No, watch out.
Relax. I fight whoever.
Take a deep breath.
Put your hands on me. I fight whoever.
He rolled. So, okay. Let's go over the scene, shall we? He wasn't backing down from her. She wasn't backing down from him. She smacked him in the face, which she shouldn't have done. He bull rushes the guy that's trying to hold him back. Tackles the woman with the other arm. So he bull rushes the guy with his left arm. Tackles the woman with the right arm. Rolls on top of her while she's on the ground. When she gets to her feet, he then chases her and proceeds to punch her in the side of the face. Spirit Airlines. This is exactly what I think I'm going to get when I go to Spirit Airlines. The brass knuckles thing I'm telling you about. That's what I feel like it's going to be like kind of get in there. Remember, Spirit Airlines is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the restructuring, selling off some airplanes, furloughing their pilots. Maybe you can bid for Spirit Airlines. If we all pull our money together, we can create maybe we should change the name to MMA Airlines. We can actually fight.
And guess what?
These women are upset. What are they throwing? What is that? Why are they so heavy? What were they throwing? Those things look so heavy. Wait a second. I got to see you think I can make it out if I look? Okay, hold on. I want to know what they were throwing. Those things sound. Are those like Burger King bag? Like what's in there? Like a Whopper? I gotta say, no one has better aim than a woman who's really pissed off. I mean, truly. When women are really angry, they have this amazing accuracy with projectiles that they toss across rooms. And like whatever they look like they're throwing has some kind of weight to it because you can hear it thud across the glass and across the room. Who they're going after the one flight attendant. Oh, we've moved onto the plane. Wait, is this Spirit Airlines though? This looks like a different. Man, they're brawling back there.
I need you to wear the mask I gave you.
I'm wearing a mask.
No.
Yeah.
What do you have underneath it?
What?
What do you have underneath this?
I'm wearing a mask. Legal by who? Legal by who? Legal by who? What's wrong with my mask?
It is not legal according to the CDC.
Really?
Really?
Oh, this must be during
Show
COVID.
Me those rules.
That's why
Show me those rules.
That's why I
Show
handed you the
me
mask.
those rules.
I don't have to show you the rules.
Well, I don't have to wear the mask that you gave me. I'm wearing the mask that I have.
Well, then.
This was during the time. This must be during the time, during COVID when, people wanted you to not wear the neck gaiters. They wanted you to wear like full mask, and people were kind of revolting. It was. Let's never go back there again, please. Oh my goodness, that was terrible.
I've been on 20 flights. Okay.
Well,
I've literally been on 20 flights with this same exact mask.
I don't.
All right. Well, I'm done talking.
Well, so am I.
Okay.
And we'll have the authorities waiting for you when we land.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, he swung on that cop. Oh, he got a belly full of taser. They always say stop resisting when they're tearing your arm off. Stop resisting. Spirit Airlines chaos, folks. That is what I imagine that flying on Spirit Airlines is like. It's like a mix between like Mad Max and MMA and an apocalyptic kind of weird Orwell 1982 experience. That's odd. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've never flown on Spirit Airlines. I don't think I even know anyone that has flown on Spirit Airlines. But it's what those videos kind of underscore how I feel about the experience of that airline is. I don't know how Spirit Airlines is going to kind of come up under the bankruptcy and what they're going to do. You know, frankly, moving, you know, kind of getting to the next level, the other side of this bankruptcy. It's going to be interesting. So there was something I wanted to actually bring up on the show tonight too, and I found this was actually really interesting because tonight, part of the Monday Night Live show is that we talk about business. Yes, I can talk about your business. If you want to talk about how you can create a factory overhead rate in your manufacturing business by calculating factory rate overhead, cost value units, product units, we can do that. But I like to kind of dive into some of the things I don't get to talk about when I interview my experts on Thursdays. So by the way, if you're watching this live now, I would love to see you either set a reminder, because typically on Thursdays I do a live interview every Thursday. They're usually at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Sometimes, depending on the schedule, they can be at like 4 p.m., 3 or 4 p.m. Eastern time. But typically it's weekly 1 p.m. And I always interview someone who's in a business space, who has been successful in business, who has done something remarkable, is an expert in a specific field, a concentration, someone who, like, I interviewed the CEO of Rockbox, who went from corporate to like building like a $15 million business, a $30 million business, excuse me. I've interviewed, believe it or not, I have interviewed before he died, John McAfee, the founder of McAfee Antivirus, who was kind of telling us a little bit about his story before he died, about how he was like being pursued all over the world. They thought that, I think he lived in Belize or something, and they thought that he had killed his neighbor. They accused him of killing his neighbor, and it was all conspiracy. So him and his wife, we were able to say hi to his wife, and we were talking about just kind of how life for him after post sale of his business kind of was. And that guy, he was an interesting cat, although he's dead now. But I wanted to show you like how, okay, so sometimes like in the news, in the articles of what goes wrong at big companies, is usually a lesson for us small folks, right? I've kind of live in the 0 to 1 space. So like the small startup world. I run about 3 businesses right now, from manufacturing to construction. I just sold a health and wellness company last year. And so I kind of live in the small business space, and I love it. That's kind of where my heart is. But I always feel like you can kind of pull lessons from places. And one of the lessons that I feel like you can pull from is it's always important to have controls in your business for employees, right? Like you don't want employees, I don't want to use the word inmates running the asylum, but it's something approximating that, right? You don't want employees, you want them to have ownership, but you also want to have tight controls. When you don't have tight controls, anything can happen. So let me just set the stage. So Macy's is a large company, right? They earn billions of dollars a year, even still. They've been around a long time. They've had their struggles economically. They still generate billions of dollars a year. Believe it or not, Macy's generates a ton of money per year through their like fragrance counters. Did you know that one of their the biggest drivers of Macy's business is actually their fragrance counters? Like it's huge. Look it up if you don't believe me. If you do believe me, good. Don't look it up. But one of the biggest drivers of the business is actually their fragrance counter, which I never knew, but it kind of makes sense. And fragrance is expensive. I didn't realize how expensive it was. So anyway, so Macy's had a rogue employee that did some underhanded stuff. And I want to show you the article about it because I think that you'll get, like, we can learn some valuable lessons together about, why it's important for you to have tight controls, internal controls. When we talk internal controls, we're talking accounting. If you have a small business where you have, let's say, 10, 15 employees, maybe you're small enough to kind of manage everything yourself, but you might consider actually having, like entrusting one of your employees with some kind of accounting function, whatever the case is, or or some of your employees kind of absorbing some of the operational oversight with regard to accounting or how money transfers from the customer to your business. It's so important to have a tight internal controls with your business. Every time I work with a company, a client, a business coaching client, I always talk about controls, setting up SOPs, systems and processes, yes, but within those systems and processes, there's always internal controls. This goes for a small business. This also goes for a business that is really, really big, because sometimes a mistake can cost you a lot of money. Let's talk about it. So Macy's said, I want to make it bigger so you can actually see it. A rogue employee intentionally concealed as much as, you see this, $154 million in expenses over the past few years, forcing the department store giant to delay its quarterly earnings release. The employee, quote, intentionally made erroneous accounting entries in an effort to hide expenses for years from the fourth quarter of 2021 through the most recent quarter ending at November 2nd, the company said. Macy's estimates the missing expenses between $132 million and $154 million. During the 3-year period in question, Macy's said it had incurred a total of $4.36 billion in delivery expenses.
We have a problem. We have a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, we have problems.
Yeah, I would say that you have problems, Macy's, because what the heck? $154 million. So the company said it discovered discrepancies while it was preparing its latest unaudited financial results, which showed a quarterly revenue drop of 2.4%, reflecting weaker than expected sales at Macy's stores and online. Shares of Macy's, which is gearing up for the crucial holiday shopping season, fell 2.2 to $15.94. The employee, who thankfully no longer works for Macy's, was responsible for small package delivery expense accounting, the company said. There is no indication that anyone else was involved in the scheme or that the accounting problem affected the company's cash management or vendor payments, Macy's said. It is not clear how this individual may have benefited from the scheme, but accounting experts speculated that there are 3 possible motivations, including securing a larger bonus. The vast majority of accounting fraud is over reported revenues or underreporting expense recognition, because both of them would overstate profitability, said Stacy Ritter, assistant professor of accounting at the Levy School of Business at Santa Clara University, right? So yes, so hiding expenses inflates the revenue because it looks like there's more profit that's dropping to the bottom, or adding receipts to the top line revenue, which also make larger amounts of net profit fall to the bottom, are common fraud things that happen, right? Like common and fraud. They just kind of happen. It says an employee might be, but this is why in accounting, in financial accounting, you need what's called internal controls. Internal controls are processes by which a person's function kind of begins and ends at between a certain point, and then someone else takes over at a certain point before they have kind of like the keys to the kingdom to do like an entire function, or while that person is performing a whole function, you have oversight that requires approval of someone over them who is a sign-off manager or signatory or whatever the case is. If you've ever worked for like a bank, all banks have internal controls when it comes to money because their business is money, right? They create new money. So what they do is they have like a manager, like a cash is being checked, a check is being cashed over a certain, if people still cash checks, if a check is being cashed over a certain amount, manager has to sign off on that check being cashed. If there's a withdrawal of a certain amount, manager has to sign off. I think they call it an override. Override is something specifically where a manager comes in, turns their key or puts in a password, and they're kind of acknowledging, the second set of eyes acknowledging that a transaction outside of the norm is happening, and they've laid eyes on it, and that person is correct in trying to cash a check of a certain amount or trying to withdraw money of a certain amount. That's an internal control. Okay. Financial accounting 101 says an employee might be motivated to meet earning targets because they have bonuses tied to meeting certain targets, or they might be under pressure from other people in the company or have stock in the company and they don't want to lose value by missing an earnings target, said Ritter. It's unlikely that the former employee siphoned money out of the company, restructuring expert Adam Stein Sapir told the Post. When someone underreports expenses, they're more likely to be doing it as a way to hit financial targets, which could positively impact their bonus. The company did not provide details about the former employee's motivation. At Macy's, we promote a culture of ethical conduct, Chairman and Chief Executive Tony Spring said in a statement. While we work diligently to complete the investigation as soon as practicable and ensure this matter is handled appropriately, our colleagues across the company are focused on serving our customers and executing our strategy for a successful holiday season. So there is no other statement right here that a company could make than this, that like CEO could make. Now explain why. Without proper internal controls at a company, whether you are a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 50 company, whatever Fortune you may be, or whether you're a small company, without internal controls, it's going to be very hard to get investors to believe that management is competent in any way that we have them invest. It can affect their profitability, the overall company profitability, which makes the company vulnerable to the ebbs and flows of finances, right? And even like hard times, investors want to always know that their money is secure and able to grow because they're not at risk of any sort of liability, or that the company is not at risk of rogue employees, hint, hint, Macy's, that just kind of cutting themselves checks for $154 million, or in this case, attempting to get a bonus. So that's why internal controls are really important. So the bottom line is that I thought this was a good lesson because, again, if you have a small business and you are trying to grow your business and have it thrive, it's so important for you to have processes and controls so that you know where your money is at all times. Who's spending your money? If you give out company credit cards and you're a small business, what are they spending your money on? What do you have limits and caps on your employee credit cards, even gas cards, where they can't spend over X amount, so you know how much money at any one given time can actually be charged? Have you, for instance, verified the background of your employees before you kind of issue debit cards and stuff like that? It's just really, really important to ensure that you understand the to create a structure and a framework in which your employees can actually thrive and grow and actually contribute to the company in a way that doesn't tempt them, doesn't put them in temptation. And even if they are in a position that requires, extreme morality, extreme ethics, it's going to be very important for them to have oversight. So you should always commit to oversight when you have employees who are who are working for you. So it's like that's really critical. So this is a good question. Thank you, Jeremy. What are ways that you can track that? I feel some business expenses aren't actually for the business. So actually, that's a great question. So yes. So one of the ways, like when I'm in my business coaching sessions with my business coaching clients, one of the things that we always do is we always untangle their personal expenses from their business expenses. So we always, in other words, segregate their business expenses, force them to decouple their business expenses from the business bank account, from their personal bank account. there, you would be shocked in 2024 how many business owners out there actually have their personal, like a lot of their personal money that are just mixed in together with their business money, and it's all in one kind of personal account. The best thing to do is that all you have to, even if you can't afford to incorporate or to get an LLC, which to create an LLC, a disregarded entity for yourself, is different in cost in every state. In Massachusetts, it's $500. In Texas, I think is $100, 125, something like that. But you don't even have to go that far. If you go to the irs.gov and you create an EIN number, or you claim an EIN number, even if you're a sole proprietor, you can then take that EIN number and go to the bank and get yourself a business account, and you tie that business bank account to a merchant account that you have, wherever you process invoices or credit cards, and all the money that you process through invoices or credit cards goes into that business bank account that you set up for yourself. And that way, automatically, you're decoupling your personal expenses from your business expenses. Excuse me. You're decoupling your business revenue from your personal bank account. And then you start to kind of go to work to ensure that you're profitable so that you can actually pay yourself. So this is a kind of a really long explanation, but one of the things you could do is, for like $30 a month, you can get QuickBooks, and you can link that business bank account that you just set up to your QuickBooks. And as revenue comes in, and as things are being paid out of that business bank account, you can then start to categorize what you're spending out of that business bank account, and you can predetermine for yourself how you want to actually get, how much you want to pay yourself. And then from what you pay yourself, then you can pay your personal bills. Now, there is a longer, more in-depth, detailed explanation on how to do this, but that's kind of like the bones of this. From day one, you want to decouple your business transactions from your personal transactions by creating business bank account, by going to irs.gov, getting your EIN number, getting a business bank account, and all the money that you earn should go into that business bank account. Everything that's for your business. And you're right about the fact that some business expenses aren't actually for business, which is why I always tell people, here's a saying that I use. We have 2-hour parking in Boston, right? And I have people that say, some people say, I say to people, well, how long is 2-hour parking? And then most people say, oh, it's 2 hours. And I say, no, it's 2 hours from the time that the meter maid gets to your car, right? So that's how long your 2-hour parking is. It's the same thing with like a business bank account. So you can you can tell the IRS whatever you want that are business expenses. And it's all well and good until you get audited and they make you prove that the business expenses that you've been writing off, your cat, your family vacation, whatever the case is. But here's why that's not smart. Number one, and people don't think about, I feel like people often don't think about the entire picture because they just don't understand the entire picture. The IRS, by not properly classifying your expenses, right? By not having them segmented into categories that actually make sense, can go back and make you pay if your expenses are miscategorized. They can make you pay back taxes on which you should have paid. They can take, for instance, they can take out those personal expenses that are actually personal expenses from your past tax return, right? So it brings your like your net profit up. So every tax write-off that they can pull out brings your income up or your profit up, right? Because the point of having write-offs is that they bring your adjusted gross income down. But like every time you pull out one of those tax deductions, it goes back up. And so eventually they can rework your tax return and then they give you a brand new amount that you might owe. But in addition to the amount that you owe, because you improperly classified those expenses, they can go back and they actually can add penalties, interest, and fees. And the IRS is known, for instance, if they go back 3 years, is that they can add interest, penalties, and fees for three straight years. It's like, I know that nobody likes paying taxes, and I'm with you, because I don't want to pay $1 more than I have to, but just properly categorize your business expenses. And if you don't have a really good business accountant or someone to do your don't go to the initial tax place, right? HR block. I mean, you need to get yourself a good CPA, like someone who really, really knows tax law or tax accounting. All right, Jeremy, you said one more follow-up to that. Some expenses aren't exactly described adequately on a banking website. How would you know what some charges are versus others? Hold on, let me read that one more time. Some expenses aren't exactly described. So typically, if you're trying to get an answer to what expenses are and what expenses aren't, the best place to actually go, believe it or not, is irs.gov. They lay it out. They actually lay it out pretty clearly what they consider expenses are. In my construction company that I run, I always tell my business partner, this is just an example to kind of make the point. I tell my business partner all the time, when you're out there in the field and you're talking to prospective customers, talk to them as if you're talking to a jury. Now, I don't mean that to mean that we're saying anything particularly wrong to a customer, right? We're not misleading them, nothing like that. The point is that people, especially now in the US, are overly litigious, highly emotional, and for whatever reason have a chip on their shoulder, of course, about being screwed. We don't go out there looking to screw people, but but at the end of the day, I understand that people get kind of jumpy. So what I mean by that is that always prepare yourself for problems that could happen down the road. We're brutally honest, highly transparent, and we want the best for each customer, and we're going to do our best. It's just kind of how I think someone with ethics does business. In this case, in order to be pre-prepared for something like understanding the proper business expenses, if you go to irs.gov, they lay out very clearly that oftentimes business expenses are related. They are related to your process of making a profit in your company. They have to be directly related. Sometimes it's not exactly obvious. I think, Jeremy, this is what you're saying. Sometimes it's not exactly obvious what expenses are considered business expenses. But think about this way. Is what you're engaging in for your business. So let's pick a field. Let's say you are a barber. Okay. Is what you're about to purchase for your company directly related to your doing business as a barber? For instance, you buying scissors seems kind of obvious, right? Anything equipment related for the barbershop seems obvious. But what is less obvious are things like continuing education, like traveling to, Atlanta and going to a hair show so that you can learn more about certain products, so that you can learn more about the latest hairstyles, paying for a course that will teach you how to run your business. These things are business write-offs because they are ultimately directly related to you running your business. Getting even the clothes you wear. If you buy smocks for being a barber, and going in there and swapping those out, that would be a business expense. Another business expense would be dry cleaning associated with the clothes that you wear to the barbershop. If you have to get your clothes dry cleaned because you get hair on them often, or you get some kind of whatever you use to kind of mousse or whatever that you put in people's hair, and you have to get it dry cleaned, that would be a write-off. If you take the towels home from the barbershop and you use your electricity, you use your washing machine and dryer to clean the towels that you're going to bring back to the barbershop, a portion of what you use to clean those towels would be considered write-offs, again, directly related to your company. So whatever business that you're actually in, starting, involved in, both the direct and indirect elements of being learning about the business, contributing to the business are generally considered write-offs. And at the end of the day, you just make a good faith effort to try to get write-offs that are directly or indirectly related to your business. The tax code is something like, I think, 60,000 pages long. Let's see. Yeah, but take a look at this. Look at that. 6,871 pages. Who the heck is reading that? Right? Like, honestly, there's no one that's reading 6,871 pages of tax code in the US to try to operate their business. No one. You know who also doesn't read 6,871 pages of the US tax code? The IRS. They don't even read the US tax code has just gotten bloated over the years from being added to by like different administrations changing, incentives in the tax system for tax breaks, whatever the case is, permanent tax breaks, temporary tax, like whatever. But these pages have been added to across presidential administrations across all through the years and all the other stuff. So no one is reading 6,871 pages, as I mentioned earlier, including the IRS. And I guarantee you that, and there are things, if you've ever talked to a tax examiner or auditor, someone who helps you kind of fight an audit, they win so much in these audit meetings with the IRS. And the reason why is because the IRS isn't exactly, scholars themselves when it comes to the US tax code. They get things wrong every day, constantly. So to be encouraging about this, you're not going to know everything, but generally speaking, if you keep your expenses to things that are related, frankly, to your business, then, you're more likely to be able to adequately, categorize expenses, that are related to your business. So just keep it kind of, in the direct, indirect, category. If you have to stretch to try to write something off, then don't do it, right? But if you can see how there's a straight line to something that relates to your business, then don't be ashamed to put it in. I do all the time, right? If there's something related to my business, I put it in. I have a YouTube podcast, right? I have an audio podcast. All the softwares that I use to edit shows, whether it's interviews or whatever the case is, my internet bill here, it all gets written off because it's directly related, right? So don't be afraid to make a mistake and say, oh, I'm going to get audited if I write this off. I don't think that's true. I think that there are certain industries that get audited more than others, but when it comes to expenses, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just do your best to try to be in the orbit of what you're actually providing to the public, right? I think that's key. If you have a home-based business, then the stuff that you're using, the tools, the utilities, the resources that you're contributing as a home-based business to creating an end product that consumers are going to enjoy, whether it's digital or physical, those resources are necessary because they allow you to be able to provide that product or service to your customer, and they're necessary. Without those resources, you couldn't do it. So don't be afraid to write off a portion of your rent. If you have a home office, don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid to write off trips. If you're legitimately going on trips where you're going to investigate some new ways to improve your business. You're taking meetings somewhere else. Don't be afraid to write off your cell phone if you're in business, right? Like these are things that are obvious, but like cell phones are friggin' expensive. Let me tell you, like my cell phone bill on a month is like $300. Of course, I have a whole bunch of lines on my cell phone bill, but like the cell phone bills can get kind of unreal right now. So I mean, don't miss out on like $1,200 to like $2,000 write-offs a year on your cell phone bill. You know, so and the more in depth you're able to understand write-offs and the things that relate to your business, then the more the better you are at understanding write-offs and kind of what you can write off and kind of doing your research, you can help your tax person out, whether they're a CPA or not, because I've brought stuff up to my accountant that has actually really helped her to be able to give me the most and highest use of the tax code that I possibly can. And it saved me so much money over the years. I can't tell you. It's been kind of wild how much money I've saved just from, kind of knowing a little bit about like kind of what I have going. If you go back to school, if you're an adult and you're going back to school, like part-time, like if you're like an adult learner, then you should totally write that off because there's even a credit for that. I think it's like $2,500 a year if you're going back to school as an adult. Like, don't miss out on that. And if you haven't taken it, yeah, you should take it for sure. Another thing that you should know, like now that we're on this subject, if you're getting bored by this, like get real. You should know this anyway. Depreciation, right? I know Trump is coming back in office, and when he was last in office, he signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and part of that was accelerated depreciation, where he would allow you to take up to 100% of the depreciation of a item that you put in service to your business, like the first year. And I have a gut feeling that that's going to come back in like a new round of like tax incentives that he's going to do. But even if it doesn't, there's still, I think we're at like 80% right now. 80% depreciation. You can kind of accelerate 80% of the depreciation for the things that you buy, including a vehicle. So in normal years, you can only, outside of the Trump tax cut years, you could only like depreciate something like let's say you bought a car for like 20 grand. Let's keep the math simple. You bought a car for 20 grand. You put it in service, meaning that you're using it for your business. In normal years prior to this, you could only depreciate like 50% upfront or less, like 40 or 50%. So like, let's say like 10 grand, you can write off the first year. And then there was like a trailing depreciation for years after that, like over time. But now you can, even now, the depreciation schedule from the last Trump tax cuts are kind of going down by the year because they're expiring. They're kind of going towards sunsetting expiration. But now I think it's still 80%. So if you bought like a $20,000 car, you can write off like, 17 grand right now and then depreciate the $3,000 as opposed to kind of waiting for like 6-7 years to depreciate 50% of a $20,000 car. You can like accelerate it all to 1 year. If you need that, if you are going to have a big tax bill this year, like at the end of 2024, it may be worth talking to your accountant about that. I just thought about that. That's wildly important to know. This is the kind of the stuff that we're talking about. Also, I published on my did I publish on my website? I sent an email out. If you're not a newsletter subscriber of mine, make sure you get on my newsletter because I talk about stuff like this that you should know. And I sent out the tax rates. The IRS kind of came out with new tax brackets for this year. Do you know what the tax brackets are? Let me see. For 2025. I'm sorry, Rufus, your people won't be able to fly anymore. I don't know. Is this a reference? Is this a movie or something? Who's Rufus and who are my people? Like, who is it? Is this like a line from a comedy movie or something? I don't know what this is. All right, so check it out. Do you know how much you're going to be? I am stunned at how many Americans don't actually know how they're going to be taxed. It's wild to me. Like, we all kind of just pay taxes. You just kind of rely on people to tell you. You should know how much you're being taxed. 100%. Without looking at this, before I share it with you, do you know how much your tax rate is? I'll give you a second to think about it. Like, do you know exactly how much you're being taxed? Like, I'm sure, think about how much you make, your salary if you're working, or think about how much you bring home on your business. Do you know how much your tax rate is? Okay, I'm going to show you. This is why, believe it, like all the cheat codes for like taxes and all this stuff, like it's on irs.gov. Like it's an open book test. They're trying to figure this out. You know what I'm saying? They're like, by the way, while I'm showing you the tax code, did I miss something? Is this like a line from I want to know if this is a line from a movie or something. Anyways, let me show you. All right, here it is. Oops, I did the wrong screen. 1 second. Okay. So, standard deduction for single taxpayers and married individuals filing separately for tax year 2025, the standard deduction rises to $15,000 for 2025, an increase of $400 from 2024. Married couples filing jointly, the standard deduction rises to $30,000, an increase of $800 from tax year 2024. For heads of household, the standard deduction will be $22,500 for the tax year 2025, an increase of $600 from the amount for tax year 2024. Do you all know what the standard deduction means? All right. We're going back to tax school apparently today. All right. One second. All right. Let me share this screen. All right. So the standard deduction is a specific dollar amount that reduces the amount of income on which you're taxed. Your standard deduction consists of the sum of the basic standard deduction and any additional standard deduction amounts for age and or blindness. In general, the standard deduction is adjusted each year for inflation and varies according to your filing status, whether you're 65 or older or blind, or whether you're another taxpayer can claim you as a dependent. The standard deduction isn't available to certain taxpayers. You can't take the standard deduction if you itemize your deductions. So there it is. It's just a flat deduction that people can take unless you itemize your taxes, like as a business. Like you can't take both the standard deduction and itemized deductions. Like if you file like a 1040, like I do, I have LLC, so a couple of them. So like I itemize my deductions, which brings down my income already. So I can't, and often my deductions are greater than the standard deduction, like the amount that is in that paragraph that I just showed you prior to switching to the screen. And I can't like go back and take both of them. I can't take both at the same time. So let's get back to the tax brackets for this year. So here they are. All right. So for the tax year 2025, the top tax rate remains 37% for individual taxpayers, single taxpayers with incomes greater than $626,350. So the other rates are, it's nice that they start off with the amount of money that like no one earns, and then they go down from there. It's 35% for incomes over 250,000, 525 if you're single, $501,050 for married couples filing jointly. 32% for incomes over $197,300 if you're single. 394, or if you're married filing separately, I assume. $394,600 for married couples filing jointly. 24% for incomes over $103,350,000, or $206,700 for married couples filing jointly. 22% for incomes over $48,475 if you're single. $96,950 for married couples filing jointly. 12%, 10%. So as we always have in the US, I'm not sure why this is so complicated for people, we have a progressive tax system. The more money you make, the higher tax you pay. Bottom line. So if you're making over $500,000 as a couple, you're going to be paying the top tax rate, right? 35%, 35 to 37. Depends on, how exactly in that range, exactly in that range you fall. If you make less than $11,925, you're going to be paying 10%. If you're married and you make $23,850, you pay 10%, $2,385. Now, here's the thing. Here's where actually like all the hay is made, though, right? Like, remember that's just federal taxes. State tax is kind of where you get killed too. I live in Massachusetts. Massachusetts, it's 5%. So if I'm making, let's just do some obvious math. If let's say I'm I kind of combine everything together. So let's say I'm in the 35% range, right? What I do is I just add the 5% to that, and then it's like 40. It becomes $40,000. I mean 40%. So I know that whatever I make over 501,008, I'll try my best to do like 500 and 199. So like I get taxed at 35%. But like that's kind of how you do it. You add that 5% or whatever your tax rate is in your state that you live in to your federal, and then that's what you get. Now, of course, this goes down. You can get it down if, for instance, let's say you own a business that makes $500,000 a year, and you have $200,000 worth of deductions, so that 501 becomes 301. Now you're in the 24% tax bracket, because you haven't hit the trigger of 394,600. So like if you go from 501 to 301 because you have $200,000 in tax deductions or write-offs, then you've just kind of bought yourself some much less taxes. Now, politicians like to talk about this whole the wealthy get taxed less thing, blah, blah, blah. Here's the reason why the wealthy get taxed less. And by the way, it's not all wealthy, it's some wealthy. It's wealthy individuals who actually rely on capital gains for their income, right? Because capital gains are taxed differently than are marginal rates for regular income, right? So capital gains are taxed at a lower rate than this progressive scale that you see right here. So if you want to kind of know what the rich are paying who use capital gains, like for the taxes, we can just kind of Google that. Okay, so here it is. So, excuse me. So the capital gains rate changes depending on how much you have, but so it depends on how long you hold those assets. If you held the assets for more than a year, you'll owe either 0, 15, or 20%. in 2024, 2025. So this is kind of how like people who are wealthy. So for instance, like let's say that you are worth $300 million, and you have let's just call it $100 million in stocks, in investments, and you make all your money off of like dividends, right? Which are essentially their income, but they're also taxed as a capital gain, right? It's a tax on the increased value of that asset. Depending on how long you own the asset can determine how much you pay. And so that's how so politicians use, for instance, the line that they pay less taxes than their like secretary, but that's only true if the uber wealthy are paid through capital gains, right? It's not true if the uber wealthy, for instance, use their like if they have businesses that generates their immense wealth, and the businesses for their immense wealth are generating income for them, they get taxed like everyone else. That's the point. So for instance, like Mark Cuban, right? A lot of his money is, I don't think he plays in the stock market that much. Or I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're like watching this, I don't think that like someone like Mark Cuban makes a lot of his money in the stock market. I think most of his money comes from his businesses that just kind of generate revenue for him and income. So he actually pays a higher tax rate based off of, I'm sure he has some capital gains from some investments that he has, but I think that most of his money actually comes from the marginal tax rates for income. So that's kind of where he gets the money from. So, yeah. So like, obviously that's kind of how the income rate breaks down. So the more money you make, the more you pay in taxes. The less money you make, the less you pay in taxes. And it's been this way for decades. The fun talking points are that, I just mentioned them, like blah, blah, blah. You pay less than your secretary. Yeah. Only if you are getting all of your money from capital gains. That's kind of how it works. I mean, but that's something that eventually everyone can do, right? If you are watching this and you're 18 and you have like literally all of your life, you're not me, and you're like not in your 40s, and you put away $350 a month on a regular basis, by the time you're my age, like you're 42, you're going to have a few $1 million in the bank, and you could get paid from capital gains and have that same tax rate. Because trust me when I tell you, that is not going to change. It doesn't matter who is in office. The people who pay contributions to like all these politicians rely on capital gains and the benefits thereof. And that is not going to change. So we can get mad about it, but instead of getting mad at the people who are taking advantage of it, take advantage of it yourself. Try your best to put it away. Try your best to put yourself in the position or acquire assets that appreciate so that you can pay less money in taxes. Yes, find write-offs. Like this is like how you kind of like hack the system. You just literally you learn the rules and play the game better than everyone else. And you all are smart enough to do this. I'm convinced that we can all do it. So, man, this podcast is going. I appreciate everyone who's sticking around tonight. This is great. This is awesome. So, I have a every Monday night. I do a live show like this, right? And I do a live show on Thursdays where I interview an expert, and I want you to kind of it's kind of during the day. So like if you're working, I understand, but generally it's better for the experts to do it like early in the day. And I lose kind of brain power like Thursday afternoon. Like I'm exhausted usually when I'm interviewing people. If I interview them at night. So I ask terrible questions. They're just not quality. Oh, there's something I want to show you all. So if you didn't join the show, one Monday night I interviewed two of my cousins. Both of them are artists in the art industry. And we talked about like how art is so subjective that it's kind of odd how it's so subjective. I asked them, are they going to be limited essentially or capped on the amount of money they can make because of how subjective art is, and like their earnings are being kind of held captive by essentially people just thinking that the art is not beautiful, right? Like, or they're not having a reputation. And then we kind of got onto this whole conversation about that, about like kind of just the subjectivity of art. Then we started talking about have you seen this banana art exhibit? It was at this like show in Miami initially, and then it became this kind of it became this like art installation. And okay, I got to show you this. Like, this is wild. This is kind of why, I don't know, like art, like the art world kind of confuses me. I don't understand this. Why do people do this stuff? I want to show you this. All right. A $6.2 million banana sold at auction, right? No, I am not paying $1 a week. A $6.2 million banana. 6.2 sold at auction. Like, really? But okay, so here's like with the New York Times. I didn't read this. I'm kind of reading it now with you because so we're kind of experiencing this together. So let's see if we buy this crap that they're probably going to spout in this article. It wasn't just a banana. It was a banana with a backstory. Like, first of all, really? A banana with a backstory? Anyways, it says the spectacle on Wednesday evening when a Sotheby's auctioneer in Manhattan warned potential bidders not to let Maurizio Catalan's fruity artwork slip away ended with a duct tape banana selling for an astonishing $6.2 million with fees. A crypto entrepreneur named Justin Sun placed the winning bid from Hong Kong, adding Catalan's 2019 conceptual artwork titled Comedian to the quirky collection he amassed over the last few years that includes a Giacometti sculpture, a Picasso painting, and a very expensive NFT of a pet rock. A pet? What is a pet rock? But the winning auction is really just the beginning of the negotiations that will take place over the next month or so. A buyer typically has 30 days to pay, by which time the banana will inevitably be blackened and rot. Yes, I have questions about this. In a phone interview this week, Sun said that he intended to pay for the banana with his own invented cryptocurrency. However, Sotheby's might only accept payment through more popular forms of digital payment like Bitcoin or Ethereum. Here are 6 questions you might have after seeing the ultra-rich wave millions around for a piece of fruit, one that might well spoil from its own success. That's a witty double entendre there. Contrary to the crypto entrepreneur's statement that he intended to personally eat the banana as part of this unique artistic experience, it would be unlikely that the actual banana presented at Sotheby's would survive the plane ride to Hong Kong, even if refrigerated. In fact, the duct tape banana is only the physical representation of the conceptual artwork that Catalan made in the 2019 edition of Art Basel. That's it, Art Basel Miami Beach. If you missed that show I did with James and Nigel, you should go back and watch it. I'll try to throw the link in the description so that if you want to stay with me for another hour after this watching that, you can, because we talk all about this and we talk about the art industry and the business of art. Like, if you've ever been intrigued by the business of art, you should watch that podcast. It was actually really, really good. It says in Art Basel Miami Beach, where it was originally sold for between $120,000 and $150,000. Conceptual artworks are essentially ideas. What the artist typically sells is a certificate of authenticity and a list of instructions for owners about how to maintain or recreate their purchases. Catalan made 3 editions of Comedian. Once his payment has cleared with the auction house, Sun will likely inherit the surprisingly detailed 14-page list of instructions with diagrams that Catalan has provided other collectors of the banana, including the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, which received a version of Comedian from an anonymous donor a few years ago. The instructions include diagrams and an explanation of how the banana should be installed and displayed, including permission to replace the banana when it rots. Lena Stringari, the Guggenheim's chief conservator at the time, said the instructions were easy to follow. They suggested changing the banana every 7 to 10 days and affixing it about 5 feet 9 inches above the ground. A fresh roll of duct tape is included. Like, oh. It's 14 pages of instructions for a banana taped to the wall. Like, kids in kindergarten that break graham crackers like would know how to put this thing on the wall. I think, is this going to show us?
With an offer like this on a new Toyota, you not only get great value for your money right now, but because Toyota is the longest lasting brand.
Catalan's Comedian. Here it is in all its splendor. We're going to begin at $800,000. At $800,000.
They began this auction at $800,000 for this thing that you can get at every grocery store or a hardware store in the country.
$1,000, $850,000 now. 850, 900,000. Thank you, sir. 1,100,000 is your bid, sir. 1,200,000. 1,300,000. 1,400,000. 1,500,000.
We are looking at an ordinary banana and an ordinary piece of duct tape. However, what makes the ordinary extraordinary is the intention of the artist who put this together.
No, I'm sorry. No, the intention. The intention. How many of you who are watching this podcast like get paid for your intention to go to work, whether you own your own business or you go to work with someone? Do you just like get paid for the day for your intention to go? Like when does intention actually, like, I intended to do something, actually cash in like that? This in my opinion would be the first time that I've ever seen an intention actually be worth millions of dollars.
I'm looking for 4. There it is, at $4 million. Say 5, please. $5 million. Don't let it slip away. 5,100,000. The world's most expensive banana at 5,200,000. It's slipping through the auction room at 5,200,000, and I'm going to sell it here. Fair warning, at $5,200,000. The Catalan is yours. Congratulations. Thank you very much indeed. Paddle number 17. Thank you very much indeed. Congratulations.
So Sotheby's is auctioning off an ordinary, and you know, I think what gets me like the worst is that they say, oh, yes, it is an ordinary banana, and yes, it is an ordinary piece of duct tape. It's not even like the duct tape was owned by Prince or something, or like, they wrapped Michael Jackson's decaying body in this duct tape and like it touched his skin, right? Like it's just some random duct tapes that some dude had in his garage and he just put on a wall, and like that's how he was able to, like, I don't know. Isn't that weird to you? Like, would you buy this? Like, if someone told you, okay, let me frame it this way. If someone said to you, that I just don't even know what the explanation would be. Here's a banana, here's a duct tape. Would you consider like displaying it, like selling it for like $6 million? I don't know. Like I just, this is so not my jam. This is so not my jam. Oh my God. It's so crazy. I can't imagine this. This is much more than I know what to do with. I don't know anything. I don't know. The art world is beyond me. Like, if you all know the art world, like, I love to hear from you, because I don't know it. Anyways, so next week on the show, I'm trying to think about ideas for next week's live show. I'm sure there will be some business stuff that comes up, but I may have a special guest next week, so that will be fun. I'm also going to be, there will be no actual live interview this week on Thursday because of the holiday, but I might be doing a live show later this week as well, which would be cool. So if I do a live show, it will be probably Thursday evening after you've had your turkey, if you're still awake. If not, maybe I'll do it Wednesday night. Actually, maybe I might do it Wednesday night. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it Wednesday night. What? Excuse me, Wednesday night, 8:30, same time as tonight. So I want you to join my live show Wednesday night, 8:30. Set your reminders. I'll let you know at what time the show is going to start, but it's going to be fun. So, anyways, I'll see you Wednesday night, 8:30. I'm going to go get some rest. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of you. This was one of my biggest viewed shows, and I appreciate you all for kind of sticking in there with me and going through all this, my Spirit Airlines fights. I thought that was hilarious. Until next time, I'm Micah. If you don't go about doing your business, you're going to be doing the business of someone else. I'll see you Wednesday night at 8:30. Take care. Talk care. Taco Tuesday.